Good morning, everybody. And we have a new expert here who she's going to teach us about every single aspect of the Longhorn defense. That is Miss Boyd, Izzy Boyd. But we got Ian Boyd, we got Justin Wells, and I'm Joe Cook. Thank you for joining. Thank you for hopping on. Alan, Sugar Daddy, AR, Roaster, thanks for stopping by. Can always count on y'all. But if you are not part of the normal crew, welcome in. Make sure you like this video. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel. And of course, head to InsideTexas.com where we've got a bunch to talk about. And one of the things to talk about, we got recruiting. Ian, you wrote a little bit on Michael Taaffe and what role he might have in this upcoming season after an All-American year in 2024. But we got to talk a little bit about the 2025 schedule. Got some news yesterday, as much as it can be here in the offseason. But got some kickoff times for Texas football, or some kickoff windows, I guess to say.
Yeah, there's a lot of flexibility here.
There is a lot of flexibility here. We had some knowns. We got, and I'm going to talk in Central Time because that's where we're all at. Ohio State, 11 a.m. San Jose State, 11 a.m. Good luck, Will Gallagher on the turf. UTEP, 3:15. Again, good luck, Will Gallagher on the turf. San Jose State at 7 p.m. And then we knew about Oklahoma and Texas A&M, 2:30 and 6:30, respectively, on Black Friday. But Texas could be playing a lot of afternoon games. They could be playing a lot of night games this upcoming season. And Justin, we're not bound by the big noon overlords anymore. We may have some late work nights here this upcoming fall.
Yeah, Florida night game. Mississippi State, I think that'll be a 2:30 or 3:30 rather. Green Bay on the schedule this year. Listen, Sark has gotten cocky. Okay,
that's Grambling, or is it Gilmer High School?
No, man, that's Green Bay. I'm gonna tell you something. Sark's getting cocky because Matt LaFleur has put together a good team with the Packers. The fact that now Texas will face an NFL team, buddy, we're at the next level.
Right, Golden's got to face his old team, right?
Exactly, and then Arkansas is going to be a night game as well. Which if that's just going to be a little more rowdy than maybe we were anticipating, because that'll be a fun one. But yeah, a lot of flexibility here. But look, first 4 games of the year, you get the big noon kickoff is what kills Ohio State, and then your cupcakes. Those are generally during the day games. Looks like Sam Houston State's ready for prime time. We're going to find out about that. But again, I'm impressed that. One, they're facing an NFL team. I respect Sark tremendously for that. That Georgia game is going to be at night, by the way. And two, play some more morning games. If you talk to guys that cover this stuff, I'm all good with a morning game. Yeah. I love it. Cover the game, do all the work, and you don't waste the last part of the day. You actually can watch other football. You can hang out with your family. You can do other things. I'm all about an early kickoff, guys, but I'm selfish.
Only got one for sure on the schedule, at least in conference play. Vanderbilt, 11 a.m. Yeah, that makes sense. If you're wondering what flex means, it means it's not at 11 a.m. That's for sure. Oh. It either could start at 2:30 on one of the big networks, or I think about 3:15 is where they throw it on SEC Network, just to kind of stagger some kickoffs. So it could be in that afternoon window, or it could be in the night window, and that's either anywhere between 5 and 7 p.m. Central. Big network could be ABC, ESPN, I think maybe ESPN2, or it's the primetime game. But like you mentioned, there is a lot of possibility that these are all night games. Like playing in the Swamp, that's probably going to be at night unless Florida truly falters.
It's going to be a night. That one, I can guarantee you that one in Georgia are going to be evening games.
Yeah. And then Mississippi State, that seems like one they may – I feel like that's an SEC Network 3:30 or 3:15 game.
I get that vibe too.
So that's what my guess is. But Kentucky at night, I'm not all that concerned. Ian, I think you and Paul kind of laid out the other day just how shot the culture is there at Kentucky, thanks to Mark Stoops' near completion of a contract with A&M. But my question, Ian, for you is, we're going to really, and this is maybe not a question, but a comment for you to expand on, is that Texas has been great on the road on true road games since Oklahoma State in 2022. They've not lost. They've lost some neutral site games. But you're going to see a lot of road night games, I would imagine. And Arch Manning and the rest of the team's ability to continue to function as road warriors is definitely going to be tested over the course of the 2025 season.
Texas has done well in road games, but they've not played conference road games anywhere close to Florida, much less Georgia, that they're going to get this year.
Just one.
What?
The A&M game.
No.
Are you talking about team or environment?
Both.
Well, the environment was supercharged. That team was capless on offense.
But the team was terrible. That was like they had nothing. I couldn't believe we just came out just with nothing.
I knew where this was going.
There's nothing like that in the Big 12. Probably the closest would be.
They haven't been to LSU at night. They haven't been to Georgia at night. They haven't been to Florida at night. They haven't been to Tennessee at night. They haven't been to Auburn at night. That's what Ian's trying to say.
Iowa State is probably the toughest conference night road game that Sark has had, right?
Yeah.
Maybe TCU.
No, that stadium's small.
No, that game was very close.
Correct.
Which game are you talking about? 23, Justin?
I'm just talking about, you said since Sark's been there. That's what I was just talking about.
You're talking about the 23 one where Doris is coming back from the shoulder?
Adnan Mitchell catch, Jordan Whittington hustle fumble.
Yeah.
That one in the Iowa State game that year. Oh, they did play a road game at Kansas State at night, Rex St. Charles notes. That was in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
So those are like respectable games that they had to go, and they showed up on the road, so that's promising. But like we're saying, this is totally different kind of deal.
I remember last year about this time when we were trying to get through the off-season dregs, the average stadium size, I think, in the SEC is like 15,000 people more than the Big 12. Because, I mean, the Swamp, it's huge. I think it's in the 90,000s and approaches 100. I'm not concerned about Kroger Field in Lexington. I'm not super concerned about Davis Wade Stadium in Starkville, though cowbells be what they are. Sanford Stadium is loud. It's a 90,000 seat stadium. They get up. They're going to get up for Texas in mid-November. They've not. I'm going to disagree with you about the Kyle Field aspect because, Justin, you and I were there. It was loud.
Yeah, but the team that was defending it was garbage.
Well, so was the Iowa State team in 2023. Like that team was.
That's part of it. That's just part of it. Like
the Iowa State team.
The toughest thing Texas faced against College Station was the fans. It wasn't necessarily on the field, but that's part of it. Chris Bennett, we're talking about conference road games. Appreciate you. I'm with it. I'm with Joe. Like, there may have been kind of a hapless effort from A&M, or they just weren't that good. But man, the atmosphere was what I would expect in a night game in the SEC, which is kind of our point. But her point too.
Part of it is not just that the SEC crowd is hostile on a different level, which it is, but it's also that the SEC teams that play in front of those crowds are also a level up.
I agree. I'm
with you there.
I do remember Trevor Knight played at Oklahoma and started for a year and then transferred to A&M. We all remember that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Trevor Knight was asked the big difference between playing in the Big 12 and the SEC. And he was like, it's not the speed so much of the players. I don't feel like that was different, which was probably true for skill players. I think D-line is usually where the SEC. But he said what's way different is that in the SEC, the Big 12 has some tough road environments, but you go to these SEC stadiums and the stadiums are closed in and you feel like you're not going to get out alive. He's like, it's just a different level of hostility and intimidation.
Didn't he beat Alabama when he was at Oklahoma?
Yeah, in the Sugar Bowl.
Yes.
I remember that. I remember that well. I think Eric and I were in San Antonio for the Army All-American thing when that game happened, and we're like, wow, wait a minute. Trevor Knight can actually play. I think that was the best game of Trevor Knight's life.
Yeah.
I think it was downhill from there.
Yeah. He was solid at A&M. The next year at Oklahoma was not very good.
Justin, just kind of looking at this, the home night games for sure are Sam Houston State, and then the A&M game, which, man, that's not much as far as home night games go. But if you're looking,
but there's a few here I think are going to be flexible. Yeah, go ahead.
If you're looking for maybe the big recruiting weekend for a home game, what do you think it's going to be? Acknowledging that A&M is Black Friday.
Yeah,
what could it end up being?
I don't know if you have a home game that you can put on a pedestal this year. I don't think there's one right here where you can say, hey, this is the game to bring in recruits. I mean, Arkansas that's gonna be a fun environment, not just from Texas fans, but from Arkansas fans. If they figure out how to use Google, they're gonna wind up in Austin. And so that's gonna be fun. But at the same time, like, there's just not a game like last year's Georgia. That was the game recruits were talking to us about for 6 months. There isn't one of those games. I don't see one of those on the schedule this year. And so it's going to be one of those things where Texas – and they're going to host a handful of guys. We know that. But it's going to be interesting because, yeah, they don't have that big game, home game this year where we can say, hey, this could be the big recruiting weekend. Remind me, is Texas home or road this year in Dallas?
They're wearing orange. Home.
They're home. Okay, that might wind up being their biggest recruiting opportunity. I know it's not home. I know it's neutral, but they're getting to wear since they're home, they get to host. And, buddy, the talent in DFW in 2027 is ridiculous. So maybe they don't get that sweet home game that would draw in recruits like they did last year with Georgia, but being able to host in Dallas this year, I think is probably – but by what we can see, that's going to be your biggest recruiting weekend.
And to that point, I think it's 2027.
Would say so.
Yeah, I think it's that'll be important for 2027. Like, as far as I can tell,
that's why I said 2027 recruits.
Yeah,
that's what. Yeah, and that's generally how it works with recruiting. But 2026 guys are the more relevant.
And Texas doesn't want to waste official visits in Dallas. They've pushed back against that. I mean, as long as we've been doing this across 3 different head coaches, 4 for both of y'all. One interesting aspect of this, though, as Chris Bennett brings up, not that one, but that's a good aspect. No home games in October. They go on the road to the Swamp on October 4th, in Dallas on October 11th. They're up in Lexington on October 18th, play Mississippi State in Starkville. And then they go right into it with Vanderbilt. And that is going to be, I think, one of the biggest tests of whether they are, whether they can make it through. That is going to be, even though they play Georgia, Arkansas, A&M to end of the year, it's hard for me to not think that at the Swamp, in the Cotton Bowl, and then at Kentucky, it's going to be challenging just for not playing at home. And I know you get all week at home and you get a charter flight to, direct to these airports, but kids like playing at home. They like home games. They like being in front of the fans. I don't think that's lip service. I mean, it is somewhat, but I think all the coaches that talk about, like, we love playing in front of our fans, it's genuine. It's why you come to Texas, play in front of 100,000 people. And
hey, I think Sark did this on purpose. So that Arch Manning has to come back for 2027 so he can get some of those premier home games.
Doesn't Michigan come back?
No, that's 27. I think it's Notre Dame. Hold on, this is an easy Google.
Notre Dame,
Texas football
schedule. I feel like Minnesota's on there too, but they're not.
Come on, FBSschedules.com. There we go.
There we go.
It will be in 2026. Oh, come on.
AJJ.
Ohio State at home.
Wow. That'll be great.
So, to me, this is Sark playing chess over checkers. He wants to make sure Arch is a homeboy for the next 2 years. Load up the schedule for the next year. The going away tour.
It'd be funny if they did the trade again, where Texas wins on the road and then Ohio State comes back and wins in Austin.
Just like 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Maybe Julian Sands and next Troy Smith. Maybe not. I think they have.
I think Julian Zane can throw the ball a little better, to be honest. And I know Troy won a Heisman.
Smith was pretty good at it that second year.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah,
I was there.
And who's that other guy that they had?
The biggest thing for them that year was Anthony Gonzalez. Like, everyone knew about Ted Ginn. Everyone knew about Santonio Holmes. But it was the third guy, that slot receiver, that Texas didn't have the matchup at DB for. Because remember, Terrell Brown got in trouble that week or week before and got suspended. And so they had to rely on Ryan Palmer and Brandon Foster. And as soon as those guys jogged on the field, that L was coming.
Oh, man, that was a fun weekend. That was also like right when they started renovations on DKR, too, to move the north end zone closer. So a little bit different. It'll be supercharged.
Wasn't that the jumbo screen the first time for the jumbo? I don't know. I think it was.
Might have been. Yeah.
That was a great environment, guys. One of the best environments in college football I've ever experienced in my life. It was incredible. And for Colt McCoy in his second game ever to just hold up in that, I thought was pretty cool.
And that was when Texas put together that like "Make Us Proud" campaign, because they got so disrespected up in Columbus that they're like, "Hey, don't retaliate, make us proud, be good fans," and stuff like that. That's peak Mac Brown football. Before we keep on going, got to show some love to our sponsor, and that is Academy. In honor of your service and support for our country, Academy Sports and Outdoors is offering military and first responders 10% off your purchase, both from your local Academy Sports and Outdoors and online from April 27th through July 4th. Exclusions apply. Visit academy.com/discount for details. And Academy, thank you for being a great part of our show. Oh, here's a Trace Little bringing it in with some of the attendance numbers. Kyle, let's see if I can remember all this. Kyle Field has 102. LSU has 102. Neyland has 101. And that's the one I think we're missing out on. I've been wanting to go see Neyland and see the Vol Navy and stuff like that for a while. DKR, 100,000. Bryant Denny, 100,000. Fat Dog, Georgia. That's what, Sanford Stadium, 93.
I love how you're doing these translations.
Swamp Lizards, 80.
It looks like a bunch of coding.
That's Florida. The other Kitty team, that is Auburn.
Missouri.
Yeah, underrated environment. Jordan Hare, 88,000. Oklahoma has 86. That's what, Gaylord Family Stadium. Roosters, Williams-Brice, another big one I want to go see. What is it? Razorback Stadium, 72. This, I'm just kind of showing off. I'm sorry.
Vaught Hemingway, 77K.
I'm enjoying
in
this.
Front of the name is the actual place.
Yeah. Vaught Hemingway, 64,000. Yeah, Ole Miss is not a good home
Trace
field.
got us reading Braille on here this morning.
Cold Kitties, that'd be Kentucky. That's Kroger Field. That's 61,000. Crazy Kitties.
Missouri.
I don't know if Texas is playing any women's teams.
Missouri.
Missouri's Crazy Kitties, I think.
What are they? Faroe Field. Poor Man's Bulldogs.
Hopefully they fix that field.
What's the poor man's Bulldogs?
Davis Wade Stadium, Mississippi State.
Mississippi State.
And then Wannabe Navy, that is Vanderbilt. And that is 40,000. So Trace Little, thank you.
Wannabe Navy.
All those big names are terrific. I haven't even heard like half of those before.
Trace, you were a champion for that. We appreciate you.
Yeah, we should need to give Super Chat back to Trace for contributing that to the show.
Yeah.
I just wanted to show off that I know what the stadiums are called too.
That was impressive too.
It's,
It
it's
was.
that time of year for me. Every now and then, I don't know when it starts. It's I start just playing fight songs, just listening to them, get pumped up for the.
I hear that
season.
on the NCAA college football, and that's what kind of gets me in that mode, that mindset.
Exactly.
Once the boy starts putting that game on, it gets real.
So we'll keep on going. And
let me get Antoine real quick. Yeah, Antoine. His name is CJ. He is a 2028 prospect. He is about 6'4", about 180, 185 pounds. I saw him last year when they played Pleasant Grove. I don't know what his position is, but it's football player. It's athlete. He's a really good basketball player too, kind of like his dad. His dad was kind of a master of a bunch of different things. CJ is going to be one to watch. I think he's going to be a premier prospect in a couple years. So, yes, Chris Whaley is actually, I believe, the defensive line coach for Atlanta now.
Maybe,
and so there's another one coming up, and he looks good, guys. Very good. Very skinny.
Maybe the son will get to D-line faster than Whaley did.
Do you know?
Son will never touch D-line. Never. That's a skill kid.
Chris Whaley is the subject of one of my favorite Will Gallagher pictures ever.
Yes, the traditional jersey, the gold.
Oh,
yep.
yeah.
Dude, let me tell you something. Before that injury at West Virginia, that dude was headed to the second or third round of the draft. He was having a career year before that injury.
I hope they bring the gold back. I like the gold outlines.
Man, are you kidding me? Absolutely. The gear that week, I know Eric got one of the long sleeves, and I still am envious of that because you cannot find those anymore. Those things are awesome.
We'll keep on going. No, we got some recruiting news to talk about a little bit.
You got recruiting stuff?
A little bit.
Even more? Oh my gosh.
You know a thing or two about that, right? But we'll talk a little bit about
barely.
We'll talk a little bit about the current team. And Ian, one of the things that lit up our Inside Texas group chat the other day, Pro Football Focus had Texas as the #1 secondary. Before we get into the Michael Taaffe stuff, you want to be a little contrarian on Texas having the top secondary in the country.
Yeah, I think that's overly generous.
Little hyperbole.
I think there's too much emphasis on returning production at safety in PFF's calculation and maybe some of the other analysis about it. Safeties in their production are usually downstream of what coverage skill is around them. When you have guys in the secondary that are ace coverage guys, then you can free up your safeties to be aggressive attacking the ball, to be aggressive attacking the run, and they become more flexible as chess pieces. And that's what happened for Taaffe last year, which I explain a little bit in the article. And what Texas doesn't have the same established ace skill players coming into this year that they did last year.
I agree with that. And I could even see #1 being an over-exaggeration. Would you still give them top 5?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Top 5 is, that's really good to be in the top 5.
We got to see what the other schools are looking like before I can give them top 5. If Manny Muhammad takes the next step, I think, yes, top 5. And I feel like Manny will do that. But Jade had already taken that step. Manny, I think, is in the precipice of doing that.
To say they're not top 5 sounds like some big diss.
Right.
There's 132 teams. To be top 5, you can be very good in the second. How many secondaries has Texas had that were top 5 in the last 10 years?
Not many, but they've had a lot in the last 20.
1, maybe 2.
What's the second one?
2017, the one with Deshaun Elliott and Holton Hill.
Yeah.
And Brandon
Jones.
Probably that one. Probably those 2 are the only ones. And the other ones were not all garbage by any stretch of the imagination.
Right. Well, there was one that was, but we'll keep going.
Or a couple.
But that gets us into what can Michael Taaffe be for Texas in 2025. What you do is you explain a little bit surprisingly that he was the second leading tackler, and that had a little bit more to do with where he lined up in his position. Obviously, someone around the ball a lot, as you can see from this little clip from the A&M game. But alignment figured into that. I don't want to say about as much. I don't want to put like quantify it, but like alignment was a big reason for his stat accumulation as much as effort.
Yeah, I think one of the effects of Texas switching from being a mostly two high team to being mostly a single high team is that the nickel became more of like a corner, and the strong safety became more of like what some people think of as the nickel. It was the strong safety who was more likely to be around the box, around on the edge, like you see Taaffe here. Is the nickel lines up to the slot receiver, so he's actually in more space, and then Taaffe is over the tight end, so he ends up being closer to the action.
Right.
That was a big reason why he was the second leading tackler. That and Texas's rotation of Benda and Lafau, maybe an even bigger factor. But he was down in or around the box all the time last year, and he was basically like he was kind of like what people thought Blake Gideon was. Blake Gideon did so much less of this than Michael Taaffe did.
I was about to say Gideon wasn't like this. He was smart like that, but he didn't put up numbers like that.
Well, and he was bigger than Taaffe, and everybody always thought of him as being like the big John Lynch type guy, but that's not really what he did.
And one of the things,
John Lynch had hands.
One of the things you can see on this play too is, he's probably reading that. What would it be? D gap, even like the gap outside of. This may be a weird tack. Is that two tight ends or is that a tackle and a tight end? It's a tackle and a tight end. So he's reading that tight end because that's probably his coverage responsibility, correct? And he sees run. He knows he has Jahdae Barron if Marcel Reed pulls the ball on an RPO. He's got Jahdae Barron there in single coverage, but he sees the handoff and goes and stops everything from churning. And that's kind of what you're talking about, him being an extra sort of linebacker. But that's not the only thing that he did. He also, playing just true strong safety roles. You see Texas there in a 3-high thing. He had to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, it's actually, ironically, he ends up in the linebacker's coverage responsibility on this one. And it's not obvious because he's so deep. But that's why he's the one that ends up picking up that crosser, is because he's dropping down into the strong hook where the other linebacker would be normally. And then just lights that guy up. So his role last year was like box safety, enforcer in the middle of the field, all those kinds of things, which you wouldn't think from looking at him because he's not like that thick or powerful looking.
He's not big or thick.
He's actually taller than I expected in person, but he's not like a huge stacked guy at all.
He ain't that much taller than you, Ian.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not. Ian, you're taller than you think.
Everybody in the family measured the other day, and I was 5'8.5" barefoot, maybe.
You're only 5'8.5"? Man, by the way you write, I thought you were like 6'2".
Taaffe is probably a legit 6 foot, maybe 5'11", but not smaller than that.
One of the reasons that Michael Taaffe probably would have been drafted last year. How early? Who knows? It may have been late round. And those
fifth or sixth round.
And the concerns about that that would have led him to drop there obviously aren't for instincts or anything like that. And I don't want to overdo the walk on, knows where he's supposed to be on the field general thing. He has those traits, but that's not his. He does a lot more than that. But Justin, there were some physical, not limitations, but maybe questions NFL teams would have had. And one of the big things this offseason, and one of the reasons why Taaffe came back, was to get a little bit bigger, to physically develop. And how, just based off some of the conversations you had over the course of spring and early stages of summer with some sources, has he been able to bulk up a little bit more? Not too much to where he's not keeping a lot of his skills, but
Right.
is he a little bit bigger and helping to check that box?
Absolutely. Like, here's the thing. There's a trainer in Austin that really does an incredible job with some of those area prospects and players in band performance. And Michael will be the first one to tell you, like, that guy is tremendous. He has helped a ton of guys. I think Jade, Makuba, there's a handful of other guys he works with. The biggest thing Taaffe wanted to do was, like, get functional mass. Don't get too big where you lose a little bit of that quickness, because he's got some of that quickness. He's not a quick football player, but when the heart is right, the feet are swift. And so he is constant. That's kind of what his MO is. He is always going to be in the right place at the right time to potentially make a play. And so, yeah, he wanted to get a little bit bigger. I think the NFL would have been pretty critical of him because he's not what I would call a big-time athlete, but he's just smart. He's refined. He understands. It's kind of like with basketball. He knows what he's good at, and he knows what he's not good at. And if you know the difference in that playing sports, that gives you an advantage over most competitors. And I think that's Taaffe 101. And so he knows what he's good at, getting a little bit bigger. He wants to be able to sustain. You know, we've heard before, kids going from 190 to 200 pounds can be the difference in playing 10 games and playing 14 games. That 10 pounds is that much of a difference. It affected Jaron Thompson, and it's affected many guys. So Michael wanted to get to that a little bit. You know, there's not a whole lot more he can put on tape that would make, I think, his stock go up or down in the NFL. I think they kind of know what his baseline is. But yeah, he came back to chase a title. He came back to get a little bit faster, a little bit quicker, and a little bit stronger. And the more he works with band performance, I'm telling you, you're going to see that on the field in 2025.
How close to 200 do you think he is now?
I'd bet he's 200.
Really?
Today.
I'm looking for, I hope he comes to media days. Me and Joe can get eyes on him. You could tell in, like, down the stretch of the season, he wore down a little bit.
Yes.
He's still throwing his body around, but he wore down a little bit.
And don't forget what he was dealing with his hand.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, you did. Beginning of the year.
He had a wrist break.
Yeah, that's right. But you could tell there were times against, like, in the playoffs, there were times when he hit guys and just kind of bounced off of them.
Little bit.
Well, he's a good tackler, but, you know, that extra weight would make a big difference.
Izzy says he'll throw his hat in there, and that's kind of what we expect from Taaffe. He will bring the helmet. It's just one of those things. You don't want to get too big where you lose a little bit of his twitch, because I wouldn't call him the quickest guy in the world, but man, he's quick in the sense that he knows exactly where he's supposed to be and go and anticipates things.
So as Ian writes, and I'll try to help him out here with a competing voice, a big part of reason for Taaffe's success was how well positioned he was. He had Jalen Gilbo at star and Andrew Makuba around him. So those are two guys who are good in coverage. Gilbo drew a tough assignment, had to play a lot of coverage against slot receivers with two-way goes in addition to his run game responsibilities. But he had coverage guys around him to where, Taaffe still has to play in coverage, but he's freed up a little bit to either come down in the box and make some plays, throw himself around, or sit over the top on some of the deeper passing routes. So he had to do that. That's, when you see that hit that we played earlier, in fact, I'll scroll to it real quick. He's there coming down in the box based off alignment, but because he knew Makuba there at the top of the screen and Gilbo could handle those coverage responsibilities without so much help. He knew Jade Barron right there at the bottom could survive one-on-one on the island. So he was freed up to move pieces thrown around too much.
Yes.
He could move around the defense and fill up a number of different responsibilities. And that's the one of him coming in the box. And then also, it's not a gift, but that interception versus A&M where he's kind of sitting over the top, reading Marcel Reed's eyes, and then goes and cuts to the sideline when he sees there's only one receiver for him that he could throw to. He goes and makes that play there. So you mentioned, Ian, that in an ideal world, Texas would not ask more of Taaffe unless it's playing a little bit more in two high, which is more of his skill set. But at the same time, and a lot of that is because of the two names that you list right after.
Yeah, Derek Williams and Jelani McDonald can cover. I don't know if they're going to be like Makuba and Gilbo. I would guess that that's a step back for both of them in coverage related to those two guys. But they are both good in coverage, and they're both going to draw coverage assignments before Taaffe does. So I expect he'll still be able to do the deal where he can lean on his IQ, knowing where the play is going, and be kind of a free hitter. And then hopefully it's just, hey, just add a little more weight and even a little more awareness, and you'll be even better in the same role.
He was a game manager type quarterback in the secondary last year. He's going to be more of a playmaker type in the secondary as a quarterback this season.
If you look at his stats, though, he actually made those stats compare very well to some of Texas's great safeties.
Yeah, absolutely. No question, man.
This may be a good time to address this one from Antoine. Where do Jordan Johnson-Revelle, Xavier Filsaime, and Jonah Williams fit behind Taaffe, Jelani McDonald, and Derek Williams this upcoming season? I almost
feel like the answer's in the question.
Yeah. Who?
Yeah.
Almost. Who would be? JJR would be the nickel from that group, right?
He would be the backup nickel to Jelani and also be able to play some field safety. Yes. And then Filsaime, I believe, is the boundary.
Really?
And he'll be backing up. Is he? It's. I think it feels to me if he's not the boundary, obviously he's the field.
I would think because he's fast, right? He's kind of more rangy.
Yes.
I think he'd be field. JJR would be star or boundary.
Okay.
And Jonah would probably be.
Jonah's a jack of all trades. We don't know where Jonah's going to fit in the secondary. It's just one of those things where you put Jonah Williams in the secondary and just start cooking and see what it tastes like.
I've never been more nervous that he's just going to end up all baseball.
Don't worry about it,
Ian. Don't create problems.
My one concern about this is I feel like, not the baseball part. I kind of feel like Filsaime and Jonah would both fit really well at boundary, but I'm not sure who the free from that group would be.
JJR in a pinch.
Or Jelani back there and JJR slides to star.
Yep. I think
Jelani can cover back there at safety, and that's his future NFL position anyway.
Filsaime to field eventually, just whenever he figures it out.
Right. That's the one that he has kind of kept up on. But I'm with you guys. Jonah in the boundary. That's a guy that's going to bring hat. He is going to fill the alley like that. You got a linebacker with safety cover with corner skills and safety ability. So Jonah's going to figure his own way out. And I can promise you, Ian, that's a football first mentality with Jonah right now. May not have been with his older brother. It is with him. He is football first.
He could make $1 billion playing baseball.
No, he couldn't.
He'd have to hit a lot better.
He'd have to hit over 262.
Anyway,
he's a tremendous athlete. Tremendous. That's why he can do so many things. But he's not what we envision a $1 billion. He's not Shohei. He's not Mookie Betts. He is a great athlete that can do a lot of different sports.
So, Ian, you mentioned that last year Texas played a lot of middle single high coverage, middle of the field close coverage. This is too high and something that Texas might find themselves getting into a little bit more. They're just above. You can't see my mouse, but on the top hash, you see the $sign. That's the strong safety, the boundary safety. That's where Taaffe is fit in. What would his responsibilities be here that may look a little bit different than when he was just the able to drop into the box or play in a single high role?
He'd be like, to borrow Justin's metaphor from earlier, he'd be a little less playmaker and a little more game manager. So you'd be like hanging back, make sure nothing bad happens, and then go play cleanup if you need to. And the star in the 2 high coverage, your star is more of your extra box guy, enforcer type dude. And that's why, like we were discussing in the group chat, like Jahdae Barron would get worn down with injuries by the end of the year. It's because he was playing the star at like 190, 195 in a 2 high scheme. And then he moved to corner and Gilbo replaced him, and Gilbo was even smaller. But it didn't matter because they ended up using the strong safety more. And then Taaffe played that at like 190, and he kind of wore down a little bit by the end of the year. So they have, for this next year, they have a bunch of dudes that can play around the box. So it's really interesting to see what they decide to get up to. Because like Jonah Williams is all about that. We don't know if he'll be ready, but that's how he projects. Jelani McDonald is really good. He could play that star spot right here and mix it up. Taaffe could do that if you put Derek Williams behind him. And JJR can do that. JJR is pretty good sized as well. So, good.
I'll show you in the next diagram you have is important. A lot of people, when we're talking about 2 high safeties and stuff like that, they think it's very, very coverage oriented, but it's also, very involved and translates to how run fits are. If you look at what's on the screen now, you have the buck there outside there in the C gap. You have the will linebacker in the B gap, the nose tackle in 1A, the Mike linebacker filling in the other A, the tackle in the B, and then the jack playing the C. And then because it's a strong side of the field, you need the star there playing that D gap. When it does go to single high, something a little bit closer to that, watch the linebackers and then also watch where Taaffe moves as a result. So he becomes that C gap player. And that's something that, again, to your point, Ian, this is where you want to see a little bit more on him to play that role.
Yep. For either spot, the nickel is tough. It's hard to play the nickel too heavy because you still have to turn and run a little bit. But that strong safety in this style, he can get bigger and get away with it. Like you could put a 220-pound dude there if he's quick enough, and it's fine because he's going to end up in the box a lot. Like Nick Saban would do this all the time, and he'd use big old dudes there. So yeah, hopefully Taaffe is able to put on. If Taaffe does this again, which is probably the most likely scenario, hopefully he can add a bunch of weight. And then when he's gone, they have a bunch of other dudes that are going to easily be heavy and play heavy. Like if Jelani McDonald comes back in 2026 and he's more comfortable there, they could slide him over there. Jelani McDonald could play at 210, 215 easily if you wanted to go that direction. Jonah Williams is already there. Who else? They have somebody else on the team too, right? That's like.
I don't think Zealous Hicks is there yet. I'm not relying.
Zealous is a year away. He's got another year in the system.
What's he going to play at, though, you think?
205.
That's still good, right?
Yeah.
No, that's good, but knowing Zealous, it's going to take him a couple years to get to that.
Do you know can y'all see what my one hang up might be with this formation, with this defensive look?
The corners?
Well, one corner in particular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last year you had Jahdae Barron doing that.
You're going to let Gilbo hold that down?
That's the one hang up that may make this a little bit more tougher to see.
I was spitballing about how Texas is going to defend Ohio State yesterday with Connor on the live. And he was like, and we were like, actually it'd be funny if they did this, but Texas would almost benefit from going back to more 2-high this year. Because all the teams they're playing, like what killed them when they played 2-high in 2023 was when teams spread them out and threw the ball around. Because that gets harder to defend in 2-high. But they don't face those types of teams very much this year. But they face a ton of teams that are going to want to try to mash you downhill and then throw over the top.
Yes.
And so if you've got like a big nickel that can help when they try to smash you, and then you keep your safeties back so they can't still throw it over the top, that's actually a better formula. So Georgia, Florida, Ohio State, all those teams, you almost want to play them in too high if you can.
Schematically, not personnel-wise, but schematically, the only team I can really think of, I know Sam Houston State's an air raid team, but whatever. Right. I know UTEP is they're kind of Brylesian to an extent.
They're going to get the ball out in 10 seconds.
Oklahoma, they may do the spread them out. We'll see if they have the guys to do it and if Mateer's up for it. And again, the running aspect of Mateer makes it. But that may be the only team that tries to do like plain old spread them out raid stuff against them.
Yeah. Oh, and Mississippi State actually too.
But they're Brylesian.
Yeah.
And that doesn't bother me as much
without
anymore.
The personnel.
Well, that stuff gets tricky and too high too sometimes. Like when Dylan Gabriel had Jalen Ford in a blender.
Yeah. But
Sweet and Low Stepdad has something pretty interesting over here. Is Kobe Black big enough to play star? Kobe Black's big enough to play anywhere on the field.
Yeah,
it's just star is not his position. He's a corner, and you're a corner until you're a nickel or a safety, and they're not going to move that and change that. Plus, they got Jelani playing star. They got Jordan Johnson-Rebel playing some star, which I think they're actually better there. Kobe's going to be a big one of those stereotypical big corners. He doesn't need to play star, but he's big enough to play anywhere. That kid has the size of a linebacker.
You almost want the quickness in the star, like a guy who's that big in straight line.
You don't want that big sometimes. If he's that big, he needs to slide over the linebacker.
Or Ryan Watts. Was 6'3", 208 or something.
Yeah, that's a good comp for his size. It's a great comp.
Ian with this one from AJJ. Texas has struggled with the veer and shoot in the past. How far in the past are we talking about here? And granted, Mississippi State, their version of the veer and shoot was shot and became like a ball control offense last year. Oklahoma's whatever it wasn't anything. You couldn't really find out what scheme it really was when Texas played them. But like TCU in 23, they put up 30 points, but I'm not really seeing a lot of veer and shoot teams in the past 2 years aside from Oklahoma. And that was one game where it wasn't so much the offense, but like you mentioned, it was Dylan Gabriel. Like, it's also not as common in the SEC. I have faith in Pete Kwiatkowski against the veer and shoot is what I'm trying to say.
He's yet to totally shut it down, I would say, because he faced it 3 times against Oklahoma, but only one of those Oklahoma teams was a functioning. The other 2 were like on life support when they gurneyed them into the Cotton Bowl. So Mississippi State is kind of an interesting one because he stopped them up pretty well, but they gave Texas some issues with ball control, like you said, and they had not the best personnel. So their execution of that game plan was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's total, but it also felt like they were kind of rope-a-doping Oklahoma because the approach they used against Mississippi State the week before the Red River Shootout was completely different from what they did the following week against Oklahoma. And you kind of wondered if they wanted to put something on tape that was different. So I feel like the jury is still just a little bit out on this. Like, we haven't seen PK go against a really good veer and shoot and like stuff it.
But he's not going to face one this year.
No, he's not.
And the only chance would be if
Tennessee, if they got Tennessee in the SEC title, that'd be. And Tennessee's good.
Yeah, Tennessee's oddly turned into a defensive team.
Yeah,
maybe
that might change with James Pierce being gone.
That's true.
They just need to get back. Like Nico was they did well to get off that contract. He was not that great.
I made the joke that Nico going from Tennessee to UCLA, I think it's like going from the Giving Tree to James Joyce. Like Nico was in the right offense for him, and then he decided to leave the right offense for him for money. So good luck Bruins this year. Before we keep going, got to show some love to our other sponsor real quick, and that is Andre the Lawyer.
This video is brought to you by Andre the Lawyer. If you're injured, trust the team that secured millions for their clients and helped thousands of Texans with their injury case. Car wrecks, slip and falls, 18-wheeler accidents, on-the-job injuries, and wrongful deaths. Don't let insurance tell you what your claim is worth. Hire Andre the Lawyer to fight for you. Principal office is in Dallas, but they serve Texans throughout the state. So don't wait and call Andre the Lawyer today at 214-444-8808. That's 214-444-8808. The contact information is in the description.
One other thing on Mississippi State is Brennan Thompson at Mississippi State. Now he is. Check out a video. I did it with Robbie Falk of Maroon and White Daily on 3's Mississippi State site. And he talks a lot about, they went big into the portal. And that's a program that's had a lot of change in the past few years between Mike Leach dying, Zach Arnett coming in and just revamping, redoing everything, and then Jeff Lebby coming in. He mentioned that Mississippi State did not have a single player invited to the combine last year. And that's expected off a 2-10 team. But everybody sends somebody to the combine. Mississippi State didn't. Good talk with Robbie Falk ahead of the season. We'll have some more off-season opponent intel coming your way. Justin, it's a visit weekend again. And as Eric pointed out yesterday, we like the skill guys. You got to talk a little bit to Jalen Lott, top athlete. There's some defensive back recruiting coming into play with some guys from Cy Springs. But this is the weekend where we're talking about the big boys. And the most important big boys coming in, the guy you see right there, that's Felix Ojo. And he will be joined by, I believe, Zayden Krempin. This could be the weekend where a lot of consensus building happens on the offensive line for Kyle Flood.
Yeah, that first weekend was I feel like the shoot your shot weekend. This second weekend is, hey, let's get some camaraderie together with this O-line group. You got John Turntine coming in the next weekend. You got Samuel Rosenborough expected coming in the next weekend. But man, you want that franchise left tackle. You want the most versatile offensive lineman in not only the state of Texas, but potentially the class of 2026 and Zayden Krempin. That's where you start with these two. Look, Felix Ojo, we all know this story. Texas has hit a home run in this recruitment. At this stage, they just need to get the closer in and get the final 3 outs. With Krempin, listen, LSU made a push. Texas A&M actually made a strong push in their official visit last weekend. But the thing you want to understand about Krempin is that Kyle Flood has prioritized this guy. Krempin can play every position on the offensive line. I get a kind of a Cole Hudson sense athletically from this guy. He could play left tackle. He could play right guard. He could play right tackle. Center might be he might be the center take, and this is what's going to wind up being a fabulous O-line haul. And so this is the weekend to kind of get them together. And, a couple of these guys have commitment dates. A couple of them don't. Wouldn't be surprised if 1 or 2 came off their timeline. There's some good vibes among the O-line targets right now in this summertime. And I got to tell you, Kyle Flood is just doing what Kyle Flood does. This is going to be, what they're doing? They're going to put together the best O-line haul in the cycle to protect Diabell. And you know what? That's what you're supposed to do.
Justin, got a good question for you here. Who is someone you'd consider a long shot recruitment that Texas has a better shot than people are being led to believe? I'm looking towards Georgia. I'm curious what you think.
Are you thinking Drake Quinn?
No, I'm thinking Xavier Griffin. You
know what? I would have said Xavier Griffin 3 weeks ago, but I don't know about that now, man. Alabama is probably the quiet leader in that one. But The last time he was on campus, they knocked it out, and Alan Clark's going to get another opportunity to do that this weekend. And that man has been recruiting at a very high clip. Once he starts closing some of these guys, it's going to be big.
What about that
Go ahead.
What about that Matter Day wideout that's like currently with Ohio State?
Chris Henry.
Chris Henry.
I think ship has sailed.
Yeah, they're not pursuing Chris Henry. They're going to let that one go. One, he needs to get healthy, but two, he was born and raised around Columbus, and so he's going to go to Ohio State. You got to understand, there's no like alpha male super duper 5-star wide receiver in the class of 2026 this year. I've had a number of coaches tell me that. There's some really good talent. Don't get me wrong. There's just not that elite. There's not that Jeremiah Smith. There's not that Ryan Williams. There's just not one of those in this cycle. And so Texas being a little bit more judicious with this. But yeah, I like Xavier Griffin. I like Drake Quinn. I think the edge position is just interesting because with Jaraylon McCoy canceling his, I think that's put some other guys in a better position, namely a Jamarian Carlton, who I think that recruitment was really helped last weekend.
What about Vodney Cleveland?
That's one where I don't think it's a long shot. I think it's Texas, Florida right now with Miami throwing some haymakers in the background. Like I think I wouldn't call that one a long shot. I'm actually working on something where I'll tell you the one. I'll tell you the long shot recruitment that Texas, I think they have a better shot than other people believe. It's Jamian Winfield. I think that one, because it's appearing like a long shot now with him completely shutting things down. He's shut off a lot of communication with a lot of schools, a lot of media. He's committed to USC. That recruitment's not over. That recruitment may just now be starting. And so that would be my long shot guy because he's still number one on that big board. He is still the most pursued guy on that defensive line. I'm going to say Jamian Winfield. Now, Jackson Miles, I want to get this. Look, Tristan Keys is a physical freak. Okay, I've seen him play. Like, he is a big, strong, physical freak. In the last cycle or the cycle before that, he's a 4-star. He's only a 5-star in this cycle because there's not a lot of other guys around there that would ascend or that would be that much better. I think Tristan Keys is a very nice prospect. I do not think he's an alpha male, and I don't think he's a number one receiver.
Finishing up a little bit, Lamar Brown, I don't think that's a long shot. I think it's a tough competition, but I think it was
a long shot before the weekend OV. It is no longer a long shot. I would say it's a layup, a short shot. Not a layup in the sense you can get him. I meant like from a shooting metaphor.
It's an elbow floater.
It's a Tyrese Halliburton floater in the lane that the people in Oklahoma just can't figure out how to stop.
But you got to be good at hitting those for it to work, and that's the thing. It's not the easiest shot.
So look, Texas and Lamar Brown are in a sneaky, really good spot. These next 2 weekends with A&M visit and LSU visit are going to be very telling. But Texas there wasn't one player that they made a bigger impression on last weekend than Lamar Brown. The buzz you're hearing around that is real.
And then last but not least, good one for Victor Santiago. Any sleepers we don't know of under the radar? I keep calling this kid Jonathan Brooks because I think that's what
Harris Melvin.
If you watch his running back tape, it looks like Jonathan Brooks.
Yeah.
Now, Jonathan Brooks probably could have played Power 5 defensive back. Stan Drayton saw him as a running back, rightfully so. Did one of the best evals probably Stan Drayton has ever put together. And I'm not saying that to like say anything bad about him. That was a offer that Stan Drayton went out on a limb for, I feel like, and made the first offer, got him in. Jonathan Brooks probably could have played Power 5 defensive back. I see something similar in Paris Melvin and Justin. It probably seems like defensive back would be his destination if he were to end up at Texas.
Yes, I believe he is an athlete recruit right now. Jeff Banks extended the offer, but this is a kid that I think they're viewing at safety. I was able to catch up with him a little bit. Oh man, probably was like 11:30 last night, 11:30. Man, it was late. He had made a little surprise unofficial trip to Texas on what's today? Thursday? On
Yesterday.
Tuesday. No, it was Tuesday evening. It was actually Tuesday evening
okay.
when he made it in there, and we made sure to point that out on the board late last night. This is a guy that, look, Texas, this kid's got like 30 offers. He's very under the radar. People aren't giving this kid enough love. I loved your Jonathan Brooks take because not only do you see that kind of style, but you see that type of competitor. And we know a couple coaches at Side Springs, they just love this guy on and off the field. They think he is a culture fit, a physical fit. And it's curious because Chase Calicut is that top safety target on this big board. But Michigan is throwing a bag at Calicut. He just came back from a Georgia official visit. The Bulldogs got his attention. They're squarely in this recruitment now. So it's going to be curious how they kind of move these guys around. I think Yaheem Riley is also a safety, but could play nickel. So I think his versatility is going to be a factor in the safety takes as well. But yeah, man, you kind of brought that guy to our attention right after he got offered just by watching some stuff. And we've been able to catch up with him and a few coaches on the staff. That kid, in my opinion, feels like a no-brainer that you just caught on a little bit later in the cycle than maybe you would have usually.
Any other running backs on the radar? It's looking like Crowell, KJ.
Crowell ain't on the radar. He's going to Alabama. It's KJ Edwards, it's Derek Cooper, and it's player to be named later. I think they might wind up getting another running back target. It looks like Carson Baker's recruitment is not going to happen. That one, they did some further evaluation there. I don't see him coming in for a visit. I was telling Eric and you guys this the other day. I think if they don't get Derek Cooper, and it looks like Amari Lattimore is trending to Camp Randall, I think you could wind up finding another guy that we don't know about yet. A late senior eval, somebody else Chad Scott had built a relationship with in one of his previous spots, notably West Virginia. The number's still 2. KJ Edwards is number 1 on that board, and there's still plenty guys around, but it feels like they're putting a lot in Derek Cooper to join this cycle. And if he doesn't, don't be surprised if we see a new name at running back, maybe in the August, September, October area.
Ian, you got time to handle one Oklahoma-related question from Sugar Daddy?
Let's do it.
All right. For the in-house OU correspondent, waiting for him to type it up.
I'm sitting here drawing up dime packages for Michael Taaffe. So,
hey, make sure there are only 11 guys on the field, because I remember I was putting together same thing one time, and I sent them all to you, and you're like, there are 12 defenders out there, Joe. I'm like, yeah, no wonder that defense looks so effective. All right. Thank you, Sugar Daddy. OU's coming off another beatdown. Texas came out flat after 49-0. OU has a bye and a cupcake before Red River.
Longhorns. Don't they always have a cupcake before Red River?
No.
Like one of those bundt cake cupcakes that cost like $9.
Worse, they have Kent State
cupcake stores.
Are you concerned that Texas plays a tough game before OU while OU gets a cupcake?
I'm concerned for the game before OU. I'm not concerned for the OU game. Because Texas plays, they get Ohio State, then they get 3 cupcakes, then they get a bye, then they get at Florida. Oklahoma.
You would rather that bye been flipped.
Yeah, for sure. But they can get all kinds of Oklahoma prep in before Florida. And they can and they should. I know Florida is a better team. That's a tougher game on the road. You can lose that game. You cannot lose the Oklahoma game. So I think Sark gets this.
Yeah.
So I think we'll see Texas load up on Oklahoma, even at the expense of the Florida game. Oklahoma, yes, they have the bye week, but their schedule goes Illinois State, Michigan at Temple, Auburn by Kent State, Texas.
And Kent State is arguably team 136.
Oklahoma, yeah.
It's abysmal.
They get 2 bye weeks before Texas. Good for them. But they also get 2 teams that can whip their butts before they play Texas in Auburn and Michigan. I think maybe they can beat Michigan. Seems like most people disagree with me. I think Auburn might go in there and deal them a soul-crushing loss with Jackson Arnold. If Jackson Arnold goes into that stadium and destroys Oklahoma in front of their crowd, and then they just stew on it for a bye week in Kent State before they play Texas, that is not a great mental place to be in. Now, if they beat Michigan and Auburn, then look out. Because they get 2 weeks to prepare for you, and apparently they're pretty good. But I'm not – the schedule – there are pros and cons for both Texas and Oklahoma's side going into this game. They both have some opportunities, and they both have some challenges. I actually like Texas's spot because the distance between Ohio State and Florida is huge, and there's a lot of things that Sark can cook up for Oklahoma in that time.
Last one before we get out of here. When will the roster be updated to reflect new enrollees? They usually put that out right at media days, so about a month from now. Probably July 13th or 14th.
I can't wait to see what sizes they have. Because there's always a few guys where maybe the height was a little exaggerated or the weight was not fixed before they put the numbers in. It's always been kind of funny that way.
Remember one year they had old walk-on and great part of the program, Thatcher Milton, weighing like 1,500 pounds.
Well, no, remember they had Cam Williams at like 395, 385 or something.
Yeah.
And it was like, he's big. He ain't that big. He ain't been 400 since he was like 16.
Meanwhile, the guy who was 395 was listed at like 350.
Tavondre?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So should be
but
good.
Tavondre can add 30 pounds per meal. So that fluctuates.
Exactly.
And look how good that dude has been playing in Tennessee, man.
Gentlemen, thank you
all rookie team, baby.
Gentlemen, thank you all so much. If you're here, make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Come back in about an hour and a half for the deep dive. We'll have a bunch of different stuff on recruiting. Justin, you and I will talk recruiting scoop tomorrow. I'll be on with Eric for the latest inside the program. And if anything pops up, you'll see us right here. So, Ian, thank you. Justin, thank you. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on IT Live, presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors.